Awesome. Let me just refresh really quick and make sure we're live, but I think we're live. Hello, Facebook peoples. We love you. Thanks for being here.
Hi.
So I'm here with Becky, and we're going to share a little bit about the retreat that we did a few weeks ago in Montana. And yeah, whatever comes through that's on our hearts to chat about. So it's still loading, but
Okay.
it says we're live. So I'm
Okay.
sure we're live.
It's tricky.
Yeah. Well, when you go from Zoom to Facebook, it does a lot of extra thinking. Okay. If anyone is watching, if you have any questions or comments, if you're watching, say hi in the chat. Just be like, hey. But yeah, if you have any questions for either of us, please put them in the chat and I will watch the chat. Awesome. So what do you want to share from the juiciness first?
Well, I kind of showed up as a hot mess, I felt like, to the retreat. I just had logistically with the flood here in Livingston, I had to drive my kids way out of the way to get to their dad. And then it was all very stressful. And I guess one thing that I noticed about that you also talked about in your space video about space, was I was like really nervous to like do this big trip on my own, and like it just really like it was empowering to do that and like face that anxiety and feel nervous and like just like try to understand like what's going on with me with that. And I ended up coming a day late, and I did feel like a lot of anxiety, but then within the first 24 hours, I just like totally became immersed in this, well, kind of forced into it with the first exercise we did was the Abhyanga, which we performed on each other. And that's just a full body oil massage. So yeah, so like it all just happened really fast. Like I was able to just drop in to this divine feminine space that you guys created.
Yeah, it was really beautiful to see how your energy was so up. Like you were saying, it was kind of a lot of anxiety getting there, and and then to see you land and come into your body, and then to step into that power as a healer. And yeah, it was really beautiful. It was really beautiful. And honest, Abhyanga is very grounding. So it was perfect.
Yeah. And I think part of my anxiety was just like, which is like a big theme for me with this retreat and being in your groups and stuff, but just not really trusting women and being really skeptical about like entering this week-long retreat with people I don't really know. Like I know you guys, but like it's hard to form like really strong bonds and relationships when you don't meet someone in person. Like, of course, I love you all and I've had really deep sharings with you, but it's always through a computer. So I was a little bit nervous about that. Yeah, which pretty much goes back to like my relationship with my mom, which I really didn't have a very close relationship with my mom. So I think it's kind of, and you know, you've talked about a lot throughout your different calls and stuff or recordings you've done about just like cultural norms for women to be competitive. And you know, like I feel like yeah, that has affected me really deeply, and being betrayed by people and just a general distrust of women that I feel. So coming into the retreat, I think I was feeling all of these emotions around that, and it was just amazing how quickly it just dissipated. And I was like very skeptical of all these people, but everyone like came together and there was just this space. Like, I mean, you said eventually like divine feminine activation, and like that's truly what it was for me. Like it was,
Mhm.
yeah, it's kind of emotional. Like, um, I just have never experienced like that much love from women, and like safety and love, you know, and mothering. Like the all of the older women, like I especially like a couple particularly, like, or actually like everyone, like I just felt like they were my mom that I never had, you know.
Yes, I felt that too. You were not alone in that. I also felt the wisdom and love from the crones, and yeah, that was really, it was a very beautiful, with having us in different age range is was like such a blessing for everyone in different ways, I think, for sure. And I'm so happy to feel that you felt mothered and loved and held.
Yeah, it was a really transformational thing for me. Like it was kind of like, oh, this is what my kids feel like. I mean, I don't know, I'm sure I felt like that with my mom at points like throughout my childhood, but I don't really remember that, and I that doesn't really exist right now. Like maybe, you know, maybe eventually we can get to that place. But I come from a big family, and you know, it was just hard times growing up and lots of stress, and um so it was just kind of a, it was very healing, you know, like I just had this experience where like they, like these women were like my mom, you know.
Yeah. And so with your transformation, like how did you feel before and how did you feel afterwards? Because I know you said you feel like you were nurtured and that you had this divine feminine activation, but like what was activated? What was
I think I have a lot of self doubt or criticism and judgment, especially like when I don't do the things that, you know, like that we were doing on retreat, like all the Ayurvedic practices, or like, you know, not making the best decisions for my health or whatever. Um, and I think the retreat made me realize like I can still make bad decisions and like be a beautiful goddess, you know?
yes, now you're making me emotional. uh,
I can't really like, I feel like I can't really put that into words. It was more like just like this, like, oh, I'm okay. Like, I'm okay. You know, like it was like, yeah. And I was just like, my heart chakra was just like, I feel like when I got there, I was like super like closed off, like skeptical, like fearful, like, I don't know. I feel like I carry a lot of responsibility in my life, and not having that responsibility combined with the nature around us, the creek flowing through, and the Ayurvedic meals and practices, and like all of these women, and then the energy work that we did as well. Um, it just kind of like took me to this different space that I've never been able to experience before.
yeah, I love that, all of that. I love how your share about it was like a layer of not feeling enough was released. That's what I heard, which is
Yeah, and like I felt like I could tap in, like when I got back and I was back into like my life, it was like I can tap into that now. It's like,
mm,
oh, I'm okay, you know, like it's not like, I think I have this tendency to like go in this like downward spiral of like, well, that was the biggest thing. Like I think I felt like when I got there, I kind of was giving up on myself, you know, like, oh, like I'm not good enough. I can't do that. Like I can't is like my biggest like self-sabotage statement. So now it's like, okay, like, and like everyone there just reaffirm like all of it, because everyone's like, you're right where you're supposed to be, like all the things that we always like kind of like talk about and say, and like all the work we've done, like we all came together, like, and almost everyone there has been in your groups and we have this like our own language and like our own, like we're all on the same page or on the same wavelength, which is not something I have experienced anywhere else really outside of your group, because Ayurveda and like having that common bond and like the spirituality and the self-love and all the work we've done, it's like a container, it's like we've all been working on it. We've all created this bond through doing that work together at the same time.
Yeah. And I think there's definitely something that gets anchored when like our minds are so wonderful and fascinating, right? Like we can intellectually understand, okay, I understand like XYZ, but then when we experience divine feminine in community, like when we start to really feel some of these things that we can talk about, but like when you actually feel like you are enough, that you are the goddess, right? It anchors it in a different way. And so that's what I'm hearing you share, is that it was anchored in a new way, and it left the mind layer of like thinking and trying to figure it all out, and it was embodied. Oh, chills.
Yeah, it was very apparent to me from the being on the retreat how much patriarchal culture affects how we act and behave as women. Like I just noticed like after the first day, like none of us were wearing bras, and like, oh, like that's just like such a patriarchal thing. Like we can't show our breasts. Like we don't want them, like it's taboo, And it's funny because I was talking to one of my girlfriends the other day, and she's like, oh, I had this sunburn and I couldn't wear a bra. And my boss was like, like whatever her boss like thought like that was like it was not acceptable. And I was telling her about the retreat. I'm like, that's so patriarchal. Like the only reason we wear bras is because of men. Or not men, but like, like that's well kind of like, yeah, like I mean, for me, it's like I don't want that kind of
attention,
and I feel like it's negative attention or disrespectful or whatever. Yeah. So
yeah.
I don't know. That's just one tiny example of like how I became more aware of like what it would be like if women were to be more of the leaders of our culture.
Right. And if we heal the sister wounding, which is the competition, and the mother wounding, right? And yeah, really working on these things so that we're not walking around, and patriarchal wounding, we could just call it patriarchal wounding. So we're not walking around with these like preset judgments or competition vibes or whatever with other women. Yeah, that's huge. That's a huge thing. Pretty amazing. And so when you were stepping into, because during this retreat, we really invited everyone to step into their divine feminine leadership and their healer abilities, ability to heal yourself, but also facilitate and heal others using psychic abilities. So like for you, realizing your power and your ability to hold space, what was that like?
Well, I've never done anything like that. I've never done any healing work on other people outside of my family and my kids and my partner. And so like, I know I have the ability, but it really just confirmed it in a different way, because I think when I'm working on my family, it's not in a conscious way. I'm not like sitting there. It's not so like I'm going to heal them. I just do it because it's intuitive to like touch my kids or like, do energy work with my hands. So actually doing it in a setting that was set up for healing and doing the different, we did all of these different, for the people that are listening, we did all these different healing modalities from Ayurveda on each other. And so like feeling the actual and intentional, feeling the energy and the power empowerment of that, and like having that space where it was set up just for that was just so cool. Like it made me realize like that is my calling more than the other thing. Like I was trying to do, I mean, I went into coaching before, but I don't know. I think doing the retreat made me realize like my calling is more like energy work than actual coaching or whatever.
Yeah. So like more body work as well.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. I didn't even know that. Thank you for sharing that. That's so beautiful because we've talked about that, and it is important to find that deeper calling and like how do I step in to divine feminine and follow like this in this life. What is my, what's this other purpose, or how do I give back, and how do I use my unique gifts and talents and skills for others? And so I didn't even know that. Yeah. So are you going to be an Ayurvedic practitioner?
I did leave there thinking, like I even told Elaine on the last day, like I kind of want to learn how to do this. I don't know when I would do that, but like really it was more than just like pursuing school or whatever. It was just like an acknowledgement of like, for so many years I've been working with other people to heal myself. And like in the past year, I've really moved into just my own healing, like my self healing of like realizing that I can heal myself better than most people, other people. And like, if I trust in myself and like my ability and my knowledge and my wisdom, then I can actually make a difference in my healing and my life. So I think, having that experience made me come back, and now I'm doing a lot more self-healing. Like I'm actively doing it. I still have my bad habits and I still like am critical of myself, but I'm more gentle with myself, and I'm like, just every little thing is like I'm doing this for me, and it's like more meaningful and more it's more meaningful and more, what's the word, transformative than just like going through the motions.
Yeah, what I hear in that share is that your self-care habits have become more like rituals and more sacred. And so then the healing energy that you're giving yourself is more amplified because it's not a checklist. It's not something that your mind's like, you have to do this. It's something that your body's like, ooh, I want this. And you're like, okay, body. Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not like, I also, one of the biggest things I noticed was how often I just fall into other people's rhythms and energy. And so I think one of my biggest goals now is like embodying my own essence and my own energy, and like who am I when I'm not just falling into somebody else's energy, and like what is important to me. Like just, it was just a very clarifying to like what I want my values to be in my life.
Yeah, and that is something I think that's just amazing about most retreats, if they're set up enough to do that, is having that space away from your life and your responsibilities, like you said, and like the other triggers, and having like that sacred space to really connect with what what are your deeper desires and what do you really need. So I'm so glad that's like such a beautiful thing to leave the retreat with, like, oh, like I am committed to myself. Like my internal voice is louder and I'm going to continue to nurture it so it's louder than the external voices.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting to like to be a witness to myself. Like, oh, like normally I would be giving all this energy to other people, and now it's like I just don't feel as inclined to do that. I'm more like in tune with what I need. And if I'm always giving all my energy away, then it's just not good,
Yeah, definitely. So is there any little stories or moments from the retreat that you want to share that really touched your heart, or that you don't mind, if you don't mind sharing?
I mean, I guess one of the biggest things, which I probably haven't told anyone about, is just like the synchronicities of all of our life experiences, like as mothers, and just like the bonds that like conversations I was able to have with these women that are so similar to me. And they're older, or not even older. I mean, Cassie, she's like close to my age, but like we just really bonded in like parenting and relationship stories, and like stories about how we got to where we are. Like all of us have had very traumatic and experiences and struggles, which I think is why we are all at this place we are with our healing.
Yeah, for sure. It's so interesting. I feel like that's also part of the, like, the sisterhood wound or the patriarchal wounding, is realizing when you're with like-minded and open-hearted people in a space doing this type of work, that we are way more the same than we are different. We really go through a lot of similar struggles as women in this life. And it's so easy to watch social media or to watch, even movies and other things and be like, whoa, it's so different. But really, like, we have a lot of the same struggles as a collective. And it's kind of a fascinating thing and reassuring, I think, to realize, like, oh, we all struggle with that sometimes, or we all struggle with this sometimes.
Well, the cool thing too is like every single one of those women is a healer, and every single one of them has different rituals or practices. And it's like they would just teach me, like when I was telling them about something, they would be like, oh, I do this. And then they will like go through the whole thing. I'm like, where's my journal? I got to write all this down. Like, or like like it was just very like empowering to be like, oh, you do that every day. I could do that every day,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. What about,
or
oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, or like, just, I don't know. Everyone was just so willing to like give. And I don't think I've ever really experienced that before, which is really sad.
Yeah, I think that's part of that open heart. Like, everyone's hearts were definitely activated. If they weren't when they got there, they were definitely activated while we were there. And that give and receive, we were nurturing that as the facilitators every day, right? With the treatments and everything, like, you have to give it and you're invited to give it and receive it every day. And that, I think that really created more of that energy by having it as part of one of the
Right.
actual things. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was going to ask about because we had this divine, amazing cook who cooked us all these Ayurvedic meals, and we ate our meals so slowly and mindfully. And I was wondering, have your habits around eating or cooking or anything with the food changed? Because mine have. So
Yeah, it was really I have never really hung out with all these Ayurveda people. So I was like, wow, these people do what I do. Like it was just like, oh, they like to eat this weird food like I do. I have a really chaotic life, which is kind of, it's by choice. Like I choose to be doing multiple jobs, and that's what fills me up, like having different things. I think I get bored when if I tried working at like a business this winter, and it was just not as fulfilling for me. But so it's been kind of hard. I actually was like really angry after like coming back from the retreat and falling into my crazy life, and like I was kind of getting angry because I could not find the space to sit and eat my food. And like, I kind of went through this just like, I guess just my typical like self-sabotage of like, I wanted to be farther along on this journey than I am. But now I'm just trying to embrace when I do have time to really make it into a ritual and eat the foods that I know make me feel good. And I'm more aware of like when I'm not doing that. And so it's kind of slowly, I mean, it has affected me for sure. Like I have a much greater awareness around what I desire, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, for me, I eat a lot slower. I think that's my big transformation is because I do intermittent fasting and all this stuff, like when it's time to eat, I'm hungry. Like I am very hungry. And so it's been a challenge in the past to not scarf it down and be like, food, yay. Right. So
Well, yeah, and overeating, like I loved that Margot was cooking small, like I'm noticing how much food I throw away because I'm like, I'll make a meal and then it's like I need to portion things out way smaller because if you're actually sitting and chewing your food and like thinking about it, you actually don't eat as much. You don't need as much. Like, and then when I do overeat, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so bloated. Like it's just more of a awareness, you know.
yeah, beautiful. I was just curious about that one because I thought that was, it was part of our schedule to be mindful and eat slowly, but it wasn't like the main thing. It wasn't like yoga or Ayurveda or these, Egyptian healing circle or dancing or whatever, any of these other things that we did. But of course we were eating meals every day. But I noticed for me that it was huge to eat slower and to eat more mindfully. I definitely ate less and I felt more full. And I was okay walking away with a little bit of the space, like not being bloated at all. I don't think I ever overate while we were there. And it was just, if that has kept up since coming back. And it's kind of interesting because I was sitting at the table by myself, finishing my food because everyone else ate their food and left. And I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to keep eating slowly.
Yeah. And I've been doing the saw breath on my meals.
Oh, yay.
Which feels like it's different, you know, makes the food different energetically. Across the street is what I just left to go to his grandma. Okay.
Do you feel it? Like, because I do the saw breath and I feel it. I feel the energy move from my hands and like,
oh yeah,
and love the food. And then, yeah, it's really cool. No one taught me that one. I made that one up, but.
Well, I just think in general, just being aware of like the energy moving out of my hands.
Yeah.
You know, oh, and I like touch myself more now. Like when I'm feeling anxiety, I'm like, I'll just start touching myself because that's so calming to me. Just to be like, if I'm in a really like overstimulating situation, you know, or whatever.
Yeah, that's awesome. See, I like these little gems. Is there any other little?
Like the Marma points and the swiping. I haven't done the swiping a ton, but like
I do the swiping.
yeah. Yeah, like to clear the energy, that one's really powerful. Yeah,
Like,
I don't know.
Yeah, that's fine.
And the gua sha thing, just like it was just like amazing and fun to, yeah, I have mine right here. It was so cool to share that with everyone in the room, you know, and like to do that twice. And I've gotten back into, that's definitely something I try when I'm feeling, whenever I can, I'm doing that.
Yeah, I have one in my studio right here, what you just saw. I have one in my car and one in my purse and one by my bed. And I use them all the time. I like, because they're there and I love them. So I don't ever want to not have one because it's very soothing for me, my nervous system, or if I'm feeling any type of anxiety, it's like, oh, just Just put
Yeah,
the,
and like imagining the lymph draining out, and for me, and like just, like the biggest thing is like Maggie and Wendy say to with your face, especially to be very gentle. So just it's almost like it's just like such a nice self-love practice.
yeah, totally.
Oh, and I have chanted a couple times. I've done the Gate mantra. Actually, that goes through my head all the time. I just love that one.
Well, so it's interesting when same thing with like I was saying earlier, doing something alone versus doing it together and like really activating the energy in the group. Like like I chant alone quite often, right? And it's part of what it's a nice practice for me. But chanting in the group, it really amplifies the energy. And I've noticed that any chant I do in a group, it does. The mantra is protecting the mind from itself, and it will replay way more even than when I'm chanting alone, which I think is it's just the power of the group. It's the power of community when you have a heart-centered, open-minded community and space to do that. So
Yeah, I mean, I think I was kind of intimidated by that before, so doing it with you guys and was really empowering, like doing it in person, because I know we've done it on Zoom, but it's nowhere near the same. You can't feel like you're in a room with somebody on a recording, on a streaming.
well, I've been playing with the energy in Zoom, so there is some pretty cool stuff you can do. And I know what you're saying. It is amplified. It's more powerful when we are in person. And I think that that's just an important thing for anyone listening to remember, anyone watching this later, like being in person with people is important. Like, even though you can live your whole life at your house on your screen now, like you can order all your food, like you don't actually have to go anywhere and do anything if you're in a place of that much, if you have that enough resources and privilege to do that. And it's important to be with people. So yeah, it's just, I have decided that I am going to continue doing retreats for sure because of the speed at which you can evolve in a retreat, being in person with people. Like you can just help. Felt like I was able to hold the space to help people evolve rapidly in their spiritual, psychic, divine feminine leadership abilities.
Right. And you, like you said, the structure.
Yes. And we had a lot of structure going in, like this is the schedule or the itinerary, and this is, how we're going to do it. And like having all that structure then allowed us to surrender on retreat and flow with the divine feminine energy.
Yeah.
And that was really important because we switched a few things around and it was beautiful. So yeah, I feel like we covered a lot. Do you have any closing thoughts or anything else magical you wanted to share?
Well, I did want to say, I don't think I've told anyone this yet, but when I got back, it was 4th of July weekend, and my life was like super crazy party life when I got back, just around a lot of people. And it was just like a different experience of being around people, because I think a lot of times I'm really closed off and I'm anxious, and like we had a block party. There's a block party every year for the 4th of July. And like, I just felt like my heart was wide open, and I was just like, I don't know like how to describe it, but I don't know that I've ever really experienced that. And I was like attracting women to me, like other women were like coming over to me and talking to me, and I was just like standing with the kids because I'm not like a super social person. And so it was just like very interesting to see how the energy that you put out into the world can whatever, like it can create like different things for you, I guess.
Yeah,
Connections.
and I think it affects the field. It affects the whole field of the collective if your heart is open. I think that's one of the things that I'm really proud of myself for mastering, is being able to be open-hearted in social settings with strangers and still hold my energetic space. And that has taken a lot of years to figure out. But that's why I like it, is because then people that feel a resonance will just come over to you, or you'll feel like you need to go talk to them. And then the flow of the universe, then you're starting to fall into the flow. Then you find out what you have in common. Then all of a sudden you're going to go hang out at this other thing together. And then it's just like it ripples. But I feel like those ripples of divine flow with the universe can't happen if our heart is like closed or our energy's mingling too much.
Yeah, there was one person in particular that I shared with immediately the next day, my friend Phoenix. And he like texted me later. He's like, I feel high still from like talking to you. Like whatever like I was putting out, like he totally like absorbed it. And I'm like, I think you got a download from me. He's like, I don't know what that, like he didn't know what that is, but I'm like,
Totally. Yeah, he totally did.
he totally got a download from me from our retreat.
That's awesome. You're welcome, Phoenix. So cool. Well, yeah, I see you and I really appreciate you organizing your responsibilities and investing in yourself and in the retreat and being able to be there and be activated and be part of such a special experience with me. And so I just want to thank you for
I mean, I don't think I really knew what I was getting into. But I wouldn't want, like as long as I would find a way to go, to the next retreat, as long as I have enough time to like plan it with all my stuff in my life. But even, the price point that you offered for this retreat it was so much more valuable than that. And I appreciate that you gave me the opportunity, because I don't know that I would have, without knowing what it was exactly, spent a ton of money on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, we are doing it again, and it would be awesome to have you. We're gonna evolve it, and I'm so excited about leading more retreats because of the magic that happens when we're together in person. So thank you.
And I just want to give a shout out to Elaine Dahl, because she's put so
magic.
much.
She's magic.
Like so much of her self into it, and like just with so much she just really cares about what she does. She's super passionate about it
and really good at it.
Really good at it. Yeah.
Yes. And she really taught it well too. One or two of those things she hasn't taught to a group. And I thought she just did amazing. And it was such a great overview of so many powerful treatments that we got to dive into. So yeah, definitely. Thank you for shouting out to Elaine. Elaine was the co-lead. Anyone watching this, she was my co-retreat lead with me. So yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And I'm excited to hang out and do it again next year.
For sure.
Awesome. Well, bye, Facebook.